Welcome to Heart of the Matter. In this episode, we're going to be looking at how we can build a happy and healthy relationship when healing from our attachment style and while we are in a relationship. Is it possible? Yes. Am I going to be able to show you how you could go about doing that? By the end of this episode, you will have the tools to get to that place of a secure attached style while still being in a relationship. But before I get into it, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. And I'm going to ask you again to treat this as a classroom. Healing our attachment style is not going to be one of the easiest things that we've done, but it is very possible. And when we get to a more secure attached style, then we'll be able to have those happy and healthy relationships that we deserve. Now, is it possible to heal while in a relationship? Yes, it is. And it might actually be a better idea to be in the relationship and heal than be isolated. And the reason for that is when we're in a relationship, that's when we're triggered. That's when we feel uncomfortable. We're going to have moments when there is an uncomfortable conversation or something that's going on, and we may just want to run. Now, if we get our body so used to running every time there is discomfort, then that's what the body will resort to doing because, again, we are a beautiful organism that's really just concerned about surviving. This body is concerned with staying safe and secure. But if we want to have relationships, healthy, happy relationships, then we know running isn't the healthiest way of communicating. Also, if we tend to get defensive when we don't like what we're hearing, we can now learn how to listen and try to understand and empathize with our partners. We can also learn how to be gentle with ourselves. But when we are alone and healing, we don't have the opportunities to practice these new changes. We don't have the opportunity to change behaviors and patterns. Now, codependency is something we want to pay attention to, and that's different than healing and being in a relationship. If we are afraid of being alone, if we can't sit at home without a distraction, if we feel like we constantly need to have friends over or maybe get drunk or get into anything that takes our mind away from uncomfortable feelings, then that's something that we probably want to remove ourselves from our relationships for periods of time to do some deeper healing. That being said, if we want to be comforted by our partners, sometimes, not that it's a need all the time, we have to be gentle with ourselves and accept that it is natural. It is natural for us human beings to want to be comforted, especially by the people we love. So I would break it down as codependency is when we are anxious and antsy whenever we're alone, when we can't sit with our thoughts because our thoughts makes us so incredibly uncomfortable. Now, like I've said earlier, it is possible to build a happy and healthy relationship when you're healing from an attachment style. And even though attachment styles are often very deeply ingrained into us, it is possible to heal when we recognize all the steps that we can take, and then we can initiate and maintain these happy and healthy relationships. So I want to share 6 ways that we can do that. The first one is awareness. It's absolutely important that we are aware of what we want in our relationships, what will make us happy, and then we dissect the things that we feel will not make us happy. So, for example, if we feel that our partner is not fulfilling our emotional needs, we want to be able to determine what our emotional needs are. Is it that we want our partner to wish us a happy day at the beginning of the day? Do we want our partners to check in on us? And then we ask ourselves, why is it important? Why is it so important that it causes distress for us? And is that an assurance that we should probably give ourselves? Could it be that we may feel a little insecure about the relationship? Why might it be that we are having a hard time communicating this to our partner? What are we afraid of? So being aware of what we're feeling and why we're feeling it can help us to change those patterns and the behaviors. And it's going to help us eventually to act differently. We're going to be able to find techniques and ways to soothe ourselves, communicate what we feel we need in the relationship. And for the most part, you'll find that the things that we may worry about sometimes, or the things that we may get concerned about, when there is that level of awareness, then we're no longer concerned about it. Because think about it. How big a deal is it really to get that morning text to say, have a great day? And instead of asking them to do it, can we do it for them? And if we're doing it for them, and we start to feel like we're compromising too much, is that really real? Or is it what we've learned to do based on what society, blog posts have told us that we should be having in our relationships? So awareness helps us to pretty much figure out what it is that works for us. And the things that don't work for us, we get to question those. Where did it come from? Where did this belief come from? Where did this feeling come from? And when we're aware, we heal and we can let go and we can move on. Another thing we want to do is address our fears. We need to be able to reflect on the fears and the insecurities that we have because of our attachment style. And then we address those particular fears and insecurities. And why is it important to address them? If we don't address our fears, they're going to take root and they're going to fester. And eventually we either explode in the relationship or implode within ourselves. Unfortunately, and again, this is where we need to be gentle with ourselves. We need to recognize that in a lot of cases, we don't even know that our fears are driving our behaviors. A lot of times we lash out because we might be afraid that we're going to lose our partners. We may feel that they're not giving us the attention, or they don't value us, or they don't respect us. And we don't realize that this comes from our childhood, from not feeling good enough, from being afraid that we were not good enough, for feeling unseen and unheard and not chosen. And recognizing this, and as I said, in the number one way of healing through your attachment style and being in a relationship is that awareness. When we can reflect on the things that's creating the fears and the insecurities, we can understand the root cause of every behavior, not only towards others, but towards ourselves. Self-sabotaging comes from fear, generally the fear of, again, not being good enough. The fear of staying too long in a relationship, investing too much, and eventually the relationship may come to an end. And so sometimes we just self-sabotage. We create a mess in the relationship to push the other person away, prove to ourselves that, yeah, everyone else was right. We're not good enough. So addressing the fears and insecurities and being aware of why these fears and insecurities are there in the first place, then perhaps we can let go and not do the self-sabotaging that so many of us do. The third thing we want to do is practicing emotional regulation. We first want to know what we're feeling. We want to label that feeling and label it accurately, or as accurately as possible. And then we also want to be careful that we don't take on that label. And what I mean by that is, instead of saying, I am sad, which is equivalent to saying, I am Annalisa, I have become Annalisa, I have become the word sad. We say, I am feeling sad right now. And what that does to the brain and the body is it says, this is a temporary feeling. It's going to pass. But I'm also acknowledging that this is how I feel right now. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling distressed, but I am not this. And then when we have this feeling, we can make a decision of how we move forward. I am feeling sad, so I will take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to sit with this sadness, and I will ask questions like, why am I feeling this way? Can I remember a time when I felt this way? Is my body trying to remind me of a time when I felt this way, and it's asking me to do something that's going to be soothing? So, should I just spend some time journaling or meditating or getting involved in art or even just going for a walk? Because let's always try to keep in mind that the body wants to survive, and stress damages the body. And this is going to lead us to why self-care is so important. We need to be able to prioritize our emotional needs, our feelings, and our time for growth. And that means we need to step away from the relationship even when we are in the relationship. We need to be able to spend time with ourselves. And that can look like this. If you're doing something for yourself and by yourself, and you hear a ping and it's your partner texting you, you don't have to drop yourself to rush off to see what it is your partner wants or needs. A lot of times we do this because, well, maybe we've gotten into the habit of always being there, always checking that text message and responding right away. We are people pleasers for the most part. Now we're healing our attachment style. We could still be selfless and caring, but it doesn't have to come from a place of fear. Fear that if I don't respond, they're going to get upset. If I don't respond, they're probably going to leave me. If I don't respond, they're not going to like me anymore. If those are the reasons, or you have similar reasons to that, then it's time to pull back and do some healing. What am I really afraid of? Those are some questions. That's a question you want to ask yourself. And practicing self-care will tell your body and mind that you are important, and it's going to lead to self-love, where you start to see what you actually deserve in a relationship. Because if you are going to give yourself the time and the energy that you know you deserve, when you move into a relationship and it's becoming a more healthy relationship, then you'll see that the energy you put into the relationship with your partner and the energy they put into the relationship with you is well deserved. And that leads us to why it's important to also be open and honest. And this is the fifth thing that you can do. The first ones that we've had so far, how to be aware of your feelings and your attachment style and why that's important. The second one was addressing your fears and reflecting on what those fears and insecurities might be. You want to practice emotional regulation. That's the third thing you want to do. The fourth one is to practice self-care. And now we are in why it's important to be open and honest. You want your partner to know what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and your process in all of this. It builds intimacy. You're now opening up yourself. You're being a little bit more vulnerable, and it brings you closer in the relationship. You're building a bond. You're going to be addressing your fears of communicating, right? A lot of times we are afraid to speak up and let our partners know exactly how we're feeling, because there is that fear that they may not approve, they may feel uncomfortable, and they may leave. So in many cases, we remain quiet, and we don't realize that while we may not say anything, our energies are felt, and that puts that pressure we're trying to avoid in a relationship it still brings that pressure in. And that can make our partners feel insecure and unsafe because now they know something's wrong. They can feel it, but they don't know what it is. So push through that fear. And why we want to push through that fear is that the more you push through the fear, the more your body starts to see that, wait a second, I can share my feelings. I can do it in a respectful and kind and compassionate way. And my partner is going to understand it. My partner is going to appreciate it. And I'm probably going to be supported. So it's okay. That being said, I want to caution us in being aware, the first thing that we talked about. Let's always try to keep our voice leveled, keep the conversation peaceful. And as I've said in past episodes, we want to use words like I and we. I am feeling this way instead of you make me feel this way. You make me feel this way will automatically make the other person feel like they've got to defend their position. It makes the person feel like they're being attacked. Instead, we say, I'm feeling this way. This is how I feel. I'm simply asking you, and this is understood. You don't have to say it. It's going to be understood by your partner that you just want these feelings to be respected and appreciated. And finally, it is not always easy to heal alone. So it might be a good idea to seek professional help. We may want to turn to our friends at times, but we have to remember that unless you're trained for this, a friend is going to come with a biasness. They care about you. They love you. They want what's best for you. And it's difficult for them to see things from an objective eye. They come in with their own perceptions based on their experiences. So it's always good to reach out and ask a professional, someone who knows about attachment styles, to help you on this journey. If you can't, for any reason, find that professional help or take on professional help, there's tons of information out there on attachment style. There's a book called Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. It's the first book that I read on attachment style, other than the textbooks available out there. But it was an easy read, easy to understand, and I would highly recommend you get that book. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, these topics that I talk about on attachment styles are now going to be on my website, Annalisa Bahadur. So if you have been unable to take notes, perhaps you're on the train, perhaps you're walking somewhere, you could always go to annalisabahadur.com and you will find the topics listed there. Everything that we've talked about is going to be there with a little more detail. I want to thank you wherever you are listening to this podcast. I want you to know that I truly appreciate your support. I appreciate the time that you've put aside to listen to this. Thank you for sharing my work, for being here for yourself and for your relationships. You've got this. Until next time, I'm Annalisa.